Major support for these broadcasts is provided by the CUNY TV Foundation, New York Community Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's window company, Capital One Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Geneva Burns, Tomasi and Webster, M&T Bank, the Wyckoff Group, Chelsea Lighting, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional support is provided by Ackman Ziff Real Estate, AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi, USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Colliers International, NYC, Cushman & Wakefield, DDG, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Union Funding, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, New Banks, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Centurion Holdings, John Katzimatidis, Red Apple Group, Margolin Weiner and Evans, Madison Realty Capital, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Popular Community Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling & Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, and these friends.
Long Island City on one side, and then it's called Roosevelt Island on the other side. 5 minutes away by train. It's really close to Manhattan. They're building all these buildings. So there's lots of things going on there. So as opposed to me pontificating what's happening, I brought together the people who are involved with what's happening in those markets. We have David Kramer, Roosevelt Island, who is the principal at the Hudson Companies. Andrew Kirby, who is the president of Plaxall, Long Island City. Joshua Eisenberg, who is the executive vice president of Urban America, Roosevelt Island. And last but never least, my buddy Alan Suna, who is the CEO of Silvercup Studios and Silvercup Properties. So which section is going to grow more, Roosevelt Island or Long Island City?
More, do you mean speed or do you mean in total quantity over time?
I'm talking about real estate development, I'm talking about tech development, I'm talking about...
The Roosevelt Island team will concede this one to Long Island City. The fact is that Roosevelt Island is managed by a general development plan, which was an attachment to a lease between the city and the state, because it's a 99-year ground lease, and the state can build what was agreed to in the general development plan. And with the addition of the Cornell-Technion campus, it's sort of the last piece of the development puzzle. Hudson and our JV partner Related have 3 more buildings to build in Riverwalk. Cornell-Technion is going to build their fabulous $2 billion campus.
Since we have a Cornelli over here, he'll tell us a little bit about the campus.
But then that's it. There's no future development planned on Roosevelt Island beyond what I just mentioned.
Why not?
Well, I think the general development plan had a certain idea, a certain density for what the infrastructure could accommodate.
But I believe Manhattan had a density situation years ago. And if there's limited amount of land in the 5 boroughs and people may need more development. Why shouldn't you do more development in Roosevelt Island?
I mean, I don't want to counter a pro-density argument about Roosevelt Island. I just have to say that when Hudson Related started on Roosevelt Island in 1996, Long Island City's development and new properties was this much. And let's say Roosevelt Island had at that time 12,000 people. Now Roosevelt Island has 14,000 people, and Long Island City has blossomed with multiple developments and multiple sort of submarkets. So there's just a limit as to what's there now, and could it change in the future? Possibly.
Andrew, you and your company have been in Long Island City for what?
My grandfather located there in the 50s.
Right. So
started in plastics manufacturing. Yeah.
So it's 60 years that you're there, and you've seen a change. And Alan, when did Harry Suna and his company?
My father moved his business over there in 1982, That's, 18, 20, 31 years ago.
So what has changed? As I brought up at the beginning of the program, the transportation. The transportation has been key, especially in Long Island City, and it got better when they put the F train over to Roosevelt Island. What is going on today in Long Island City? I mean, besides the fact that you happen to have the best studio in New York City, Silver Cup Studios, and then you also have Kaufman Astoria in nearby Astoria, what do you see that's going on today in Long Island City?
I would actually look at it in a different kind of New York-centric way. There's tremendous amount of pressure on the New York market coming from Manhattan. And what it does is that it forces people to go further outward. The way people are living nowadays in an urban lifestyle, there's less of a tendency to move to the suburbs. And people are wanting, often people, married couples and others or partners or whatever, are both working, and they want to be fairly close to work. So what's happening both on Roosevelt Island, in Long Island City, and what have you, is the pressure of Manhattan real estate has pushed out and has basically lifted the values there. The transportation that you've mentioned before has been there for a long time, all right? And it is now that people are taking advantage of that transportation. I'm just going to give one example. We have a couple that just bought, they combined 2 units in a condo that we just finished in Long Island City. They both work on the east side. They had lived in Manhattan, okay? They moved to Long Island City. Their commute from their apartment to work is about 6 or 7 minutes, okay? They come home for lunch to have lunch with their children, okay? It's a different kind of a situation.
Look, he's a Brooklyn boy. He's not
Suna Properties, bringing families together.
That's what we did.
And the other thing Long Island City was, when my grandfather moved there, it was a very heavy industrial area. And I think there were things done with the land use zoning over the years that have promoted this transition from industrial.
That land zoning approval was like 2001, I believe.
That was one of them. There have been other things. I think that and the Queens West project that was started in the 1980s, which I think has been pivotal and it'll be part of the problem with, Long Island City has a number of things that it's been fighting against. One is the name itself, Long Island City. You tell people Long Island City and they think somewhere out in Long Island. So there's a movement ahead now, in force now, to try and change the name to LIC. But beyond that, it doesn't have the cachet of Brooklyn. We're in Queens, and for the longest time, it didn't have, as a residential area, we didn't have any decent grocery store. We didn't have a decent pharmacy. We didn't have the basic infrastructure that we needed. I think now with Queens West and the buildings that have been built.
But Queens West, it's interesting. Queens West, there's great amount of apartments over there, but they still have a limited supermarket that was built by T.F. Cornerstone to basically accommodate the people over there.
It's actually quite a
Dwayne Reed. I know it's
a nice
market.
Yeah.
It's a true market.
And for today's young urban living people, it's got a lot of prepared foods and things like that.
Here's today. I did a show a couple weeks ago on fourth generation businesses, and I had the guy from Fairway, and they're opening up a very small unit store, which people would be surprised, on like 26th Street and 6th Avenue. And the store is only 15,000 square feet of selling space. Now, 15,000 square feet of selling space, you could do a store in Long Island City, and you could possibly you can't do another supermarket over there, but fortunately that you guys did some work over there. So I think you still need some more infrastructure. Now, your company...
But that's going to, Mike, I'm going to interrupt you. That's going to happen because if you look at really what Rock Rose is doing over in the Court Square area and how many units they're going to be building over the next few years, they're actively looking for that kind of a tenant for their buildings. And I know that they will make a very reasonable deal to have that happen. So that's going to happen.
Yeah, it can be a loss leader.
And I think just to get back to Roosevelt Island and Cornell-Technion, I think that RFP that the city put out, that the mayor came up with, of creating this applied sciences campus as a economic development engine that's going to create all of these tech jobs and businesses. They're anticipating over 100,000 jobs are going to be generated by Cornell-Technion.
Right, within the city, and I think a lot of it will be...
The mayor himself said that the logical place for that to happen is going to be right across the river in Long Island City, and it's sort of taking Long Island City full circle. I mean, one of the problems I see right now is that the development that's going on has been primarily residential, and it's really improving the area, but the people live there. As Alan said, they live in Long Island City. They work in New York and Manhattan, and they spend all their time in Manhattan and then come back. It's kind of a limited.
But you know what? I'd like to ask Josh this. Okay, you're probably one of the largest landlords in Roosevelt Island, and you develop, but you're the landlord of rental.
Right.
You have about over 1,000 apartments?
1,003.
1,003 apartments. What's the nature of the tenancy?
The nature of our tenancy in the building is a very mixed income community. So you have a lot of the tenants who have been in the building since it was built as a Mitchell-Lama a long time ago. That's about half the building. And then the other half of the building is made up of either blue-collar workforce or healthcare workers, maybe not as many doctors as farther south on the island, but you definitely have nurses and home health care aides. And then as well as we have teachers, a lot of folks who work at the UN. So it's a very interesting mix, and it's always been that way.
Now, when we were talking prior to the show, and I think, with rents, what is the rent per square foot or for an apartment in Roosevelt Island? And then we'll try to see an idea of what the rents are in Long Island City and so on.
In our building, the rents per square foot, depending on the size and the view and what, some apartments have double and triple exposures. So, it could vary anywhere from $35 to $45 a foot at least.
Now, if we have to say on a $35 to $40 a square foot, and David, you're building a couple of new developments in Brooklyn today, I mean, that's inexpensive for New York City being so convenient.
Certainly for Manhattan. And certainly for the next neighborhoods in Manhattan. But our building gets low 50s. Our latest rental building is called Riverwalk Crossing, and it's a beautiful luxury rental building, and we get low 50s.
Yeah, but your building is, what, 4 years old, 3 years old?
Maybe two.
2 years old, and your building's 35 years
1975, yeah.
Now,
that is a former Mitchell-Lama, so.
Right. So what about Hunters Point? Well,
in terms of rental rates?
With today, Long Island City rental rates are about $45 for the brand new buildings. I'd say
actually,
45 to 50.
That's the low end.
The low end.
And
50.
they're going as high as 52.
Right, but
and that's the Court Square area and some of the stuff that is on the river.
Right.
But 52 for Court Square is phenomenal. That's
no,
really,
but it's happening. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but it's not crazy when you look at whatever, but it's happening. And Court Square actually is incredible transportation over there. So it makes it good for an awful lot of people.
Yeah. Josh, what is the Cornell-Technion plan? What's their master plan? What are they building there?
Well, the first phase is going to be 3 or 4 buildings. One's going to be a purely academic building. One's going to be an industry-related building where students can interact with people within the tech industry, something like you would see at Silicon Valley. At least that's how I understand it. They're thinking of building, there's going to be housing as well within the first phase, and there's a possibility, I think, later on of building some type of convention area or hotel of some sort.
Now, David, that housing, is that being done by, is it an RFP?
Yeah, they issued an RFP, and they're looking to privatize 3 of the sites and have private developers
on that section.
On the 3 buildings, and they're going to be the developer of the academic building.
Oh, the developer of the...
Cornell is going to develop their academic building, and they did RFPs for the hotel, residential, and...
There will be a hotel also?
That's the 4th building planned in the first phase.
And how many years is the Cornell-Technion plan to be built out?
It's a 30-year, $2 billion plan, and the first phase is going to be those 4 buildings. And the plan is for them to start demolition of Goldwater Hospital end of this year, beginning of next year, and that would take a year, and then start construction on the actual buildings in phase 1 in January 2015.
Now,
they think they want to be open for their first classes by school year 2017.
mean, they're starting classes already, and Google has given them space in their building, and they've started classes already. But the plan is to get that campus, I think, up and running by 2017. I think they're about to go into ULURP.
ULURP's almost over.
Oh, it's almost over. The ULURP is almost over. The end of May, they should be through the
Now,
ULURP
how
process.
high will these buildings, with the maximum height? I'm just trying to.
I think the residential building is about 25 stories. I think that's the tallest building. But, big picture from our standpoint, we've been developing on Roosevelt Island since
1996.
1996. We were preliminarily designated. And this is the first time there's actually been buzz about Roosevelt Island. I mean, I think it's actually illustrative you even have a show on what's happening on Roosevelt Island. Maybe you got tired of saying what's happening in Harlem and Jersey City. But the fact is that for the first time...
We haven't done it, Jersey City in a couple
All right,
years,
I stand
okay.
corrected. But for the first time in my lifetime on Roosevelt Island, there's a real buzz. And it started with the FDR Memorial opening in October of 2012 and the Cornell campus. And we're trying to do our part. We're doing a whole makeover of the retail corridor. And now you have, because of the FDR Memorial, a steady stream of people coming to Roosevelt Island. To this day, most people in the city, a lot of my friends, they haven't been to Roosevelt Island. They're still surprised when they hear the F train stops in Roosevelt Island. But everybody's been talking about the Cornell campus. And so from a Roosevelt Island standpoint, it really has been a game changer.
But, as Andrew said and Alan said, there's a big buzz about LIC. I mean, LIC has really done unbelievable over the last couple of years. I mean, the waterfront definitely has made a major change in that. A number of years ago was the discussion about the Olympics, which is now going to be the residential Hunters Point development. The first building is being built by Phillips Housing and related. Phipps and Monadnock, I believe.
Monadnock, right.
Okay. And then there's going to be another RFP this month for the second building. But eventually you're going to have, what, 4,000 units?
I think that's about right. 4,000 units of housing that is, I forgot the nomenclature.
Middle income, affordable
Yeah, but
housing.
they're calling it,
Workforce housing, which will be
For
similar to...
nurses, policemen, firemen, folks like that.
And the new high school is being built into that, and retail, and new waterfront park.
Talk to me about the incubator.
Well, we're on the other end. We're on the north end of the Queens West development, and actually right at the end of our block, where we still do our plastics manufacturing, but we're mainly real estate now. They're building, TF Cornerstone is finishing up the last of their tall residential towers, and there's a school going up at the end of our block. So the neighborhood has made major changes just even in the last couple of years. And we have industrial buildings on that block. One of them is a warehouse that was leased originally to Pepsi, and then for the last 10 years it was Hertz. That lease just came to an end, and now we're looking to try and see if we can do something that's a little more interesting and will also help spur the tech development in Long Island City, because we think that's the great opportunity, the sort of game changer that has happened in Long Island City.
When people talk about tech development around the city, they traditionally talk about incubator tech. That's what Rudin did at 55 Broad originally, where he basically gave the space away at a very reasonable number. Is that are you seeing that?
Well, I guess incubator is a term that has different connotations, but I think what they're doing now is a lot of what they call co-working space, where it's sort of an open floor plan, and these tech companies like to be able to, especially the young startup ones, where they may start with 2 or 3 people, and what they do is they pay a monthly fee and they get a seat at a desk, and then if they grow, they can add more seats and get more desks. And if they shrink, if they don't have to go out and sign a lease for a specific space and then 6 months later have to try and find another space. So it's very convenient for them. And it's also, I think, that aspect plus the whole networking aspect that I think they're finding very valuable.
But here's a question with regard to Roosevelt Island and Long Island City. In order to make it a true 24-hour community, as opposed to people saying, I go there to sleep at night. You have to try to increase certain of the other amenities in the community. how are they doing today? And this is part of what you're doing on Roosevelt Island with the retail. Because basically the retail on Roosevelt Island, the proverbial was terrible. I mean, the stores were in terrible shape. You know, half of it was vacant, and it didn't matter. And you really needed that for the 14,000 residents of Roosevelt Island. And you know, even those people coming over to Long Island City, which is so close by, there wasn't all that. Are we seeing more restaurants? Are we seeing more different type of retail? Like who's moving in? Okay, are we having the national chains like the Applebee's, or are we having you know?
No, I think the
more
there's the
interesting
main road along the waterfront is Vernon Boulevard, and there are a lot of small, you know, 25 by 100-foot buildings there that have been springing up new shops over the last several years.
You've got Skinny's Cantina,
nice restaurants,
which is owned by two brothers. You've got a place that Andrew loves to go to lunch called Tuk Tuk, a Thai place.
Yeah, that's one
Well,
of
that
our
place is
tenants.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the artisanal food up at Alex
And then
Schindler's.
Tuk Tuk just
over
opened
on
a
44th.
Vietnamese restaurant in
Right,
another building.
he's opening up another restaurant nearby.
Do we, you know, since you're a Brooklyn boy, okay, even though you weren't born there, you were originally born in Long Island, you know, all the rest. But Brooklyn,
Close enough.
okay, you know, no, you lived on the West Side, but Brooklyn has the buzz, you know, today of lots of new restaurants. I mean, when did you ever have a Zagat, you know, a Michelin-rated restaurant in Brooklyn? Do you see Long Island City, or even potentially Roosevelt Island, having places that people really will commute from Manhattan to go to, which is happening?
You know what, Mike? You got to come to Long Island City on a weekend night. You have no idea how many people are there.
Get out of your Manhattan-centric world.
You know, for Yardinia. I just don't understand.
I didn't bring him up.
I think the other thing.
He said the next opportunity is Roosevelt Island.
The other thing that happened
it's not just Long Island City. I mean, it's basically you've got Williamsburg has moved into Greenpoint, and now what you have is it's coming across the canal into Long Island City, because Astoria is also hot.
Astoria is
so
hot.
you've got
They have
great restaurants, great
Yeah.
stores. So it's
But
not
national
far away.
chains. Nobody wants national chains.
I didn't say Red Lobster.
I know. No, you asked a question about national chains as if it were evidence of a benefit. What we're trying to say to you is that in Long Island City, not so dissimilar from Williamsburg, you have all of these all these different restaurants that are starting to develop. And it's a ground up kind of a growth, and it's wonderful.
And I think one of the things that we're doing now, I know in Brooklyn they have the Brooklyn Flea that they open up on the summer, and it's been very popular. We actually are about to announce a LIC Flea that we're going to have in one of our properties that's going to be on Saturdays and Sundays throughout the summer.
That's a good idea.
And we're opening up on our Annabelle Basin property. We actually bought a ferry boat, an old ferry boat that we're converting into a cafe bar, and we're going to develop our waterfront and create a beer garden.
You know, we talk about the waterfront. What about the uses of the ferry? You know?
His particular ferry boat is very cool. I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but it's really cool.
We have great views. That's the thing.
You know,
No,
people don't
it has a certain attribute, which I don't know if Andrew wants to talk about today.
I mean, you can.
But it's
I don't know what attribute you're talking about. I think it's got a lot.
what I call the fingers.
Right. I mean, it's well, we needed a way to get people from the south to the north, and the ferry boat, I think, is going to be our way to
Bridge the gap.
Bridge the gap. It's an old car ferry, and we're going to have ramps on both ends, and it's going to enable access
Now you're gonna
across.
run
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang goes to Long
but
Island City?
you're going to run the ferry yourself, or is it?
Well, the
gonna be-
ferry, it's a working ferry, and we might use it occasionally for events, but it's going to be primarily docked there.
Yeah.
And
What's happening to the water's edge? Because I remember many years ago, I happened to even I got married there. It was a major place, and you know, is it being resurrected, or is it?
it's under, I think the new management bought it several years ago.
A couple years ago.
It's a different style restaurant, though. I think it's.
No, but the catering
doesn't appeal to the,
but the catering, you know, because
Upstairs.
the upstairs was beautiful.
Yeah.
I will tell you,
Really restaurant-
I've eaten. Well, my brother got married there as well, but the food, I would say, is excellent.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent.
One-
The decor and the views, I mean, you can't beat
it's
it.
great.
It's a very nice place.
You know, why don't you talk a little bit about the cogeneration of what you did in
Well, these buildings, the building that we own is 1975. So, we've already spent a lot of money on energy efficiency within the building itself. And now we're spending another $7.5 million on a cogeneration project as well as deep energy efficiency retrofits. So the cogen plan is probably the sexiest part of the program. And it's going to make up for 15% of the electric load for the building. It's a huge building. A lot of electricity is used on a daily basis by both the tenants and the common spaces. But it's also going to make up for 99%.
You going to sell any electric to him?
We might. We could.
And the steam plant's going to be disabled on the island.
Right. But it's also good because in the event, we had 300 apartments that were out of power after Superstorm Sandy. We got power up and running very quickly, but this would provide power to very critical functions, hot water, pumps, that kind of thing, within the building. So even if the lights are out, at least the tenants will have essential services.
What about in Court Square? Are they building a second building on Gotham Center? Or is...
My belief is that as Cornell-Technion grows and the businesses that come out of that begin to grow, the mayor, when he put forth this RFP to begin with for Cornell-Technion, he talked about a model, and it's a wonderful model. It's the model that happened in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right by MIT. And if you look at how the transformation took place over there, Long Island City is the only place in which that could happen. And that may end up being some new buildings over by Gotham, or it's going to be other kinds of conversions of some existing buildings.
You bring up a really good point of the Cambridge, because Alexandria,
Joel Marcus
Center on 28th Street and off First Avenue basically is a biotech center.
Absolutely.
Okay, and there's a potential. We talk about all the tech, but we haven't spoken about the biotech, which can potentially come out of Long Island City.
And the other thing that we haven't spoken about, and which Long Island City already has in abundance, is the arts. And we've got some great, fantastic cultural institutions.
No. We're talking about artists.
We've got very famous artists
working there.
As I mentioned, Matthew Barney. We also have Takashi Murakami has got his New York
the same way you have Chelsea in Manhattan. All right, what Chelsea was some time ago is really what's happened in Long Island City. It happened in Brooklyn. In parts of Brooklyn, they got squeezed out of Williamsburg.
Are we going to see more studios? You going to build more studios?
I'm not going to tell you about that yet.
But just to tell you, PS1, to show you what attraction that is, they have an event over the summers. That's called Warm Up on Saturday afternoons, and they attract 5,000 people in there pretty much on a regular basis. And they're coming from all over the city and from all over the world. In fact, it's not just.
I wish we had more time, so maybe in a couple of months we'll bring back for part 2 on the fight between...
No fight.
It was very positive.
It's an enhancement of one another.
Synergistic
symbiotic relationship.
They compliment off each other a little bit.
Yes. Okay, at least he's agreeing. I would like to thank David Kramer of the Hudson Companies, Andrew Kirby of Plaxall, Joshua Eisenberg of Urban America, and definitely Alan Sooner of Silver Cup Studios and Silver Cup Properties, and I'll see everyone next week.